You ever notice how a man starts acting different the moment he feels like he got you locked in? I'm telling you, the energy shifts. When he knows you're always going to be there no matter what he does, he relaxes a little too much. He stops putting in that same effort he had in the beginning. Why? Because in his mind, he already won. And see, that's where a lot of women make a mistake. They think holding on tighter is going to make him love harder. But it don't work like that. Letting a man go doesn't mean you don't care about him. It means you care about yourself enough to not lose your value, trying to hold on to someone who isn't showing up the way he should. A lot of women confuse letting go with giving up, but those are two completely different things. Giving up comes from exhaustion and pain. Letting go comes from strength, clarity, and self-respect. When you reach a point where you realize you've done your part, you've shown love, patience, and understanding, and yet things still feel one-sided, that's when letting go becomes power. See, a man pays attention to how you handle yourself when things don't go your way. If every time he pulls back, you chase harder, you're teaching him that no matter what he does, you'll still be there waiting. But when you step back and allow space, when you show him that your life doesn't stop just because he's unsure, that sends a completely different message. It tells him that your world doesn't revolve around him. It includes him, but it's not dependent on him. And that right there creates respect. Strength isn't loud. It's not about arguing, begging, or proving a point. Real strength is quiet. It's the ability to say, I know what I deserve, and I'm not afraid to walk away if I'm not getting it. That kind of energy is rare, and men feel it. Even if he doesn't say it out loud, he recognizes it, because deep down, every man knows when he's dealing with a woman who won't tolerate less than she deserves. And here's the thing, when you let go from a place of strength, you're not closing doors out of anger. You're simply choosing peace over confusion. You're choosing self-worth over uncertainty. And whether he comes back or not, you've already won, because you didn't abandon yourself trying to keep someone else. That's what makes it powerful. Not the act of letting him go, but the reason behind it. It's not about losing him, it's about finally choosing you. Letting a man go is one of the hardest things to do when you genuinely care about him, because your instincts tell you to hold on tighter, to fight harder, to prove your love in every possible way. What many women don't realize is that constantly trying to hold a man in place doesn't make him feel more connected. It can actually make him feel less. When a man senses that you're afraid to lose him, he can become comfortable in ways that don't serve the relationship. Not always intentionally, but naturally. He stops feeling the urgency to step up, because in his mind, there's no real risk of losing you. Now when you let him go, not out of anger, but from a place of calm confidence, something shifts. You're no longer trying to control the outcome. You're allowing things to unfold as they truly are. That space you create isn't empty, it's revealing. It shows you who he really is when you're not constantly filling the gaps with your effort. And more importantly, it shows him what life feels like without your presence being guaranteed. Men often don't fully process their emotions in the moment. Sometimes it takes distance for him to recognize what you meant to him. When you're always there, always available, always giving, he can overlook the consistency and love you bring. But once that's gone, once the calls slow down, the attention fades, and your energy is no longer centered on him, he begins to feel that absence. And absence has a way of speaking louder than presence ever did. Letting go also recenters you. It pulls your focus away from wondering what he's doing, what he's thinking, and whether he'll choose you, and brings it back to where it should have been all along: yourself, your peace, your growth, your happiness. And when you start living fully again without waiting on him, you naturally become more attractive, not just to him, but to life itself. That's the real shift. You stop operating from fear and start moving with confidence. You're no longer trying to convince someone to see your worth. You're standing firmly in it, and whether he realizes what he lost or not, you've already changed the dynamic in the most important way. You chose yourself without hesitation. A man might not always say it out loud, but he deeply respects a woman who has her own life, her own purpose, and her own sense of direction. Independence isn't about pushing a man away or acting like you don't need anyone. It's about knowing that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else choosing you. When a woman carries herself with that kind of confidence, it changes the entire dynamic of the relationship. She's not waiting to be completed, she's already whole, and that makes a man see her differently. When you're independent, you don't lose yourself trying to keep him. You don't cancel your plans, ignore your goals, shrink your world just to fit into his. Instead, you invite him into a life that's already full. And that's powerful because it shows him that being with you is a privilege, not something he can take for granted. A man is naturally drawn to what he has to earn, and when he sees that your time, your attention, and your energy are valuable, he treats them that way. Now, here's where it really matters. Independence creates mystery and respect. If a man feels like you're always available, always waiting, he stops being curious. But when you have your own rhythm, your own priorities, he starts wondering. He starts thinking about you more, not less. It's not about playing hard to get, it's about being genuinely engaged in your own life. That's what keeps his attention, because he can't predict you so easily. And let's be real, a man doesn't want to feel like he's your only source of happiness. That kind of pressure can push him away, even if he cares about you. But when he sees that you're happy with or without him, it actually makes him want to be a part of your life even more. Because now he's choosing to be there, not feeling obligated to stay. Independence also protects you. It keeps you from settling for less, from tolerating behavior that doesn't align with your standards. When you know you're okay on your own, you're not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't feel right. And that confidence is magnetic. It tells a man that if he wants to be in your life, he has to rise to your level, not the other way around. Space is something a lot of people misunderstand in relationships. They think if you give a man space, you're pushing him away or risking losing him. The truth is, space doesn't destroy real feelings, it reveals them. When everything is constant, when you're always texting, always calling, always available, there's no room for him to actually process what he feels. He gets comfortable in the routine. Comfort and clarity are not the same thing. When you step back and allow space, you're giving both of you a chance to breathe. You're no longer filling every silence or chasing every bit of attention. And in that quiet, something powerful happens. A man starts to think. He starts to notice what's missing. The energy you used to bring the conversations, the way you made him feel, it doesn't just disappear without impact. It lingers. And that absence creates a kind of emotional awareness that constant presence sometimes blocks. Men often realize the depth of their feelings when they're not distracted by your constant availability. When you're always there, it's easy for him to assume you always will be, but when you're not, when you pull your energy back and focus on yourself, it creates a shift. He begins to question things. He begins to feel the difference. And that's where clarity starts to form. Now, this isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about balance. It's about understanding that love doesn't grow stronger by suffocating it with too much attention. It grows in the right conditions where there's connection, but also space to reflect. When a man has that space, he can figure out what you truly mean to him without pressure. And while he's figuring that out, you're doing something just as important. You're reconnecting with yourself. You're not sitting around waiting for his decision. You're living your life, focusing on your growth, protecting your peace. And that energy shift is noticeable. It changes how he sees you, but more importantly, it changes how you see yourself. Because when you stop chasing and start allowing, you realize something powerful. You don't need to force anything that's meant for you. Space doesn't weaken a real connection. It strengthens it by showing the truth that was always there. A man doesn't always recognize what he has while he has it. Not because he doesn't care, because familiarity can make even something special feel normal over time. When you're consistently there loving him, supporting him, being patient with him, it can become part of his everyday life in a way that he stops actively thinking about. He assumes it's just how things are, and that assumption can make him overlook the true value of what you bring. But when that presence is no longer guaranteed, when you step back and truly let him go, something shifts inside him. The routine is broken. The comfort he got used to is no longer there in the same way. And that's when realization starts to hit. He begins to think about the little things you did, the way you showed up for him, the peace you brought into his life. What once felt ordinary suddenly feels rare. This is the moment where a man either rises or disappears. If he truly values you, he won't just sit back and accept your absence. He'll feel it deeply enough to take action. He'll reach out, he'll try to reconnect, and more importantly, he'll come back with a different mindset. Not one of comfort, but of appreciation. Because now he understands that you're not just someone who will always be there no matter what. You're someone he could actually lose. And that realization changes everything. It shifts how he treats you, how he speaks to you, how he shows up. Because now he's aware of your worth in a way he wasn't before. Not because you told him, but because he experienced life without you and understood the difference. Self-respect is one of the most powerful things a woman can carry, and a man can feel it without you ever having to say a word. It shows up in how you respond, what you tolerate, and what you walk away from. When you have self-respect, you're not trying to convince anyone to love you the right way. You're not over-explaining your worth or begging for consistency. You simply expect it, and if it's not there, you're willing to remove yourself. A lot of women think chasing a man proves love, but in reality, it often lowers the value of how he sees the situation. When you chase, you're telling him, even without words, that he doesn't have to meet you halfway. When you stand firm in your standards, when you choose dignity over desperation, it forces him to look at you differently. It makes him realize that being with you requires effort, respect, and intention. Self-respect also creates emotional boundaries. It protects you from accepting behavior that slowly drains your confidence. Instead of holding on to potential, you start paying attention to reality, how he treats you, how consistent he is, and whether his actions align with his words. And if they don't, you don't argue endlessly trying to fix it. You step back. That's what makes it attractive. Not attitude, not ego, but quiet confidence. A woman who knows she can walk away at any moment if she's not valued becomes unforgettable. Because she's not driven by fear of losing him. She's guided by the standards she has for herself. And a man who recognizes that kind of strength understands one thing clearly. If he wants to keep her, rise, not relax.